When baking a cake, there are 4 to 5 ingredients you'll need before you get started. Check for flour, sugar, and eggs. And of course, you can't forget that delicious frosting on top. When we think about the transformation of becoming a service enterprise, we know that it can be a long process, but having the key ingredients will help us move forward. If we're creating a service enterprise cake, we need the flour, the foundation for moving forward and holding things together. In this case of a service enterprise, we need human capital. Service enterprises must create a culture of engagement to gain buy-in from employees, board members, and volunteers. But rather than dumping the flour in all at once, the batter will be more consistent if a little is added at a time. People in your organization may have a variety of reactions and concerns about the change you are taking on. It's critical to take time to discuss and work through these before charging forward with the SEI. Involving more people could include identifying management practices that apply to both paid and unpaid human resources, and re-engineering organizational charts, position descriptions, and strategic plans. Your human capital is the base of the cake. It's important to intentionally mix the entire portion into the batter, or the end result won't be as consistent. Another key ingredient to our service enterprise cake is the eggs. Without them, our dry ingredients would never mix well together. We can think about eggs as our return on volunteer investment. Research conducted by Reimagining Service indicates that every $1 invested in effective volunteer engagement practices can lead to a $3 to $6 return on that investment. Talk about something that sticks! Building support for your SE transformation can be tricky at times, but calculating your organization's ROVI can be a critical piece to help some people understand the importance of allocating resources to a volunteer program. The first step in calculating your organization's ROVI is to add up all the expenses that go into recruiting, training, supervising, and recognizing volunteers. Don't forget about the hours that employees across the organization spend on these things as well. Next, calculate the value of volunteer contribution. This is as simple as calculating the number of volunteer hours within your organization and multiplying that number by the value of a volunteer hour, $22.55. Therefore, the value of volunteer contribution divided by the total investment of your organization equals the return on volunteer investment. So, we've got the flour and eggs covered, but what's going to make our cake taste good? The sugar. Sometimes showing your ROI in a different way can make it even sweeter. A few years ago, Tony Goodrow, the president of Volunteer Squared, created a model for calculating ROI that's based on the idea that the number of volunteer hours doesn't tell the whole story. The relative impact model helps organizations ensure that they are spending the time volunteers give them as effectively as they spend the money that financial donors give them or that they earn internally. The relative impact model should be used as a tool to ensure you are prioritizing roles that contribute more towards the mission relative to their cost. Compare the organization's performance on what it gets for what it spends from one year and branch to the next. The final step to our SE cake is to add the frosting. The frosting is arguably the make or break it of cakes. It's what catches your eye and convinces you to try the delicious dessert. Our frosting is telling our service enterprise story to gain our stakeholders' support. Once you have identified the actual data that quantifies how much value this transformation brings, communicating the business case should begin. You will need to communicate the business case to a variety of internal and external stakeholders. Some questions to ponder could be, how does leveraging volunteers and their skills successfully deliver on your mission? How are volunteers integrated into the strategic plan and organizational structure? How does volunteer engagement reduce costs and increase efficiency and effectiveness? Our cake would not taste as delicious without flour, eggs, sugar, and frosting. And we would not be able to build support for our service enterprise initiative without our human capital, calculating return on volunteer investment, leveraging our relative impact model, and sharing our story.